Hey, that sounds great. That sounds
Anyway,
great.
all right. So we'll pause for just a couple seconds, and I'll introduce the
Sure.
podcast, and we'll get going. Okay.
Sure. Sounds great.
Great. Well, hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me here. This is Kirk with Pastors Positive Mental Health Institute. You might have noticed a little bit of a brand change. It's still Pastors Positive Mental Health Institute, but I've changed the podcast to Positive Pastor. I think that kind of encapsulates a little more. And so a new website of positivepastor.org. You can go check it out there, and you can contact me that way as I look forward to ministering to your church, your district, or your region, whatever you need, or you personally. I'd love to have a conversation with you. I'm really excited today to have on my podcast, and Matt, I hope I say your last name right, but Pastor Matt, is it Koenig or Koenig?
It's Koenig.
Koenig. Okay, see,
Koenig.
I wasn't sure. So Koenig, but phonetically spelled Koenig. Okay, anyway, so
Yes.
that's the wonderful
German, it's
language we have.
Koenig.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. And I had the joy of in February at Best Practices at Christ Lutheran Church in Phoenix, Arizona, of sitting in on his session. I'm always interested in mental health and what the church is saying about it and what people are learning. And I got to tell you, Matt was engaging and very vulnerable, very honest about his journey, and not that his journey is complete, but he's still, and he's sharing the tools that he has learned along the way through some crisis in his life and some other things. I don't want to give it all away. But I'm really excited to have Matt here. And so
Yeah.
let's just start, Matt, with kind of what brought you to this place in life, what led you to ministry and and what you're doing currently.
So we got about a 3-hour podcast. Is that right? Give or
Yeah,
take.
right.
No, Kurt, it's a great pleasure to be on your podcast today. And I was so excited to have you come to my sectional at BPM. What led me here? My journey has been a long one. I've been in ministry for 32 years. I am, as far as I know, and I believe I'm the unicorn in the LCMS, I am the only one who has served as teacher, principal, DCE, and pastor all at the same time. Not at the same
Right,
time, but
right.
all in my ministry career. What really led me into it was, man, my parents always told me that when I was like 2 years old, I had already memorized the old red hymnal liturgy.
Yeah.
And so I would stand in the back of church and I would just recite the whole thing standing on the pew. And so my parents would say that people would turn around and listen to me instead of the pastor do it. And it kind of came a joke. Well, the pastor started speaking into me. They started asking me questions. They started kind of directing me, hey, when are you going to go to the seminary at the young age of even 5? And they just kept speaking that into me. They kept saying it forever and ever and ever. And I really, you know how you are in high school, maybe, but I was, what everybody's telling you to do, you do the direct opposite
Hmm.
because that's the way you're made. And so I I did what in my brain was the furthest thing from being a pastor. I went on to be a Lutheran school teacher. So went to Concordia, Chicago, got my degree there, and then so on. I I I say reluctantly, and I say this reluctantly, the real thing that solidified ministry for me, getting into just my early steps into ministry, was quite frankly, I truly believe I was called. I can remember the event. My parents were pushing me, make the decision. What do you want to do for the rest of your life? I'm 17 years old. And I can remember cleaning my room and I looked down, I picked up a dirty shirt, threw it into my closet because I didn't want my mom to see the dirty clothes on the floor. And I just had this sort of feeling of going to teaching. And I walked down the hallway, looked at my mom, and I said, "I'm going to be a Lutheran school teacher." And I turned around, and I walked away, and she goes, "Okay, clean your room." And that was that. So what got me to the pastoral place was a longer journey, and I think God took me on that journey because I needed certain things to happen in my life and learn certain things in my life so that I could be prepared to be in a position like this. The biggest thing was at a church that I served at as principal DCE. I was given the opportunity to preach one Sunday. Pastor was gone. They couldn't find a sub. They asked me to step in. I did it, and I absolutely fell in love with it. I just absolutely fell in love with being up in front of people and talking about Jesus. It was great. And So I started contemplating this again. I knew this was part of my journey. I didn't want to go. I took my wife out for lunch one day. We sat down, and I'll never forget it. I was sitting at the table, and they had just brought us our water. And I look at my wife and I said, I'm really struggling with this again. I'm really struggling with should I go to the seminary or not? And my wife, who is the most even keel person I have ever seen in my life, took her water, slammed it on the table. Water flew everywhere. And she goes, would you just shut up and do it already? That was the kick in the butt I needed.
Yeah.
So that got me into the pastoral ministry. So it's a windy road, but it got me there.
Yeah. No, that's good, and we'll get into more because there's more to your story, which
Yep.
might not be in the questions that I sent, but we'll see.
That's all right.
So, what's your current role at your current church?
I am the discipleship pastor here at Prince of Peace Lutheran Church in Palatine, Illinois. Been here for about 10 years. Kind of started, I was always the discipleship pastor, but I kind of started with my hands in youth ministry and small group ministry and adult education and so on. And that was because we had lost all of our youth people. And with my background in DCE ministry, I just kind of stepped into it. And then we brought on a DCE that made the job easier. And so then I could really focus on discipleship, discipleship path, discipleship works. And then part of that discipleship is care ministry. So I really, once I figured out my own stuff, or at least had a grip on it, then I moved to a place where I could start teaching and showing and walking people through how they can deal with their mental health as well as physical, spiritual, and emotional health as well.
Mm. Yeah, that's really good. So, just for those that are non-Lutherans that I know listen to this podcast, a reminder: a DCE is a Director of Christian Education. It is
Yes.
a degree program we have in our colleges here, and a great path that I
Yes.
encourage many to do. We need more people to be DCEs, and we need more churches to desire DCEs. So
And
that's a
use them
different
correctly.
that's a different
And use them
conversation. And
correctly.
use them correctly. Yes. Well, yeah. So there's tell me about what that means. I mean, tell me about your church, but also a discipleship pastor. What does that look like for you there?
So a little bit about our congregation, and then I can go into the discipleship part. We have a congregation. We're about 1,000 members, but we worship about 300, 350 on a given weekend. Again, those numbers are different. Easter, anywhere from 12 to 2,000 and so on and so forth. So it kind of varies, but we're in that real 350 mark now, and it just keeps climbing. It's a wonderful church that is growing by leaps and bounds. We see new people every week, 25 visitors a week
Hmm.
coming to church, wanting to find out more about who we are, what we teach, why we teach it. And they really love, and I've heard this from my kids. Both of my kids are Gen Zers, and both of them has said we love the authenticity of you and Pastor Carl. Pastor Carl Fay is my senior pastor, and how we interact and are willing to make ourselves vulnerable to the congregation. That, quite frankly, as we've seen in churches, or at least I've seen in churches, the pastor is perfect and then everybody else is a sinner and sucks. And that never really works well in a congregation, but that's how they view it. So
Yeah.
instead of being put on a high pedestal, let's put ourselves in the same shoes as everybody else. Let them see who we are,
Hmm.
which then that kind of leads into the discipleship pastor role. I believe as a discipleship pastor, and we are not what I would call a program-based church. So many churches are function with, well, we have youth program and children's program and this program and that program. Pick your path. It's that old book, pick a path and let's see if you make it through kind of discipleship. Ours is more organic. I am a firm believer from my educational background that people learn in their own way. People become better in their own way. I would have never learned how to preach unless somebody gave me the opportunity to speak.
Mhm.
I would have never learned to teach unless somebody put me in a classroom. So my thought on discipleship is I continually give you the tools. I give you opportunities to find and experience those tools both within yourself and use those tools on the outside of yourself. and then continue to grow them and give you options by which you can use them. So our discipleship path right now is called joy. It's love Jesus, love others, love yourself. And so what we as a staff do, and this is not just me, discipleship pastor, discipleship is for everyone on our staff. We have said that everything fits under that bubble. And so we then go through those things. We have 8 practices that we focus in on that people are to go through, to practice and work on. We have booklets that we're starting to produce that say, how can I do this practice? How can I be still so that I can love myself? How can I share my faith? How can I share food with others, and so on? And that helps them in their discipleship pathway and process. So my job is not to necessarily do. My job is to train, encourage, and empower people to find that within themselves, and then sit down with them as needed to support and help them. Now, it doesn't mean I don't run small group ministry and run this and run that and run this, but my job is let you do you, because I can't dictate how you do it. You're your own person and you do it your way, but I want to give you the boundaries to do it the way you want to.
Yeah. No, that's really one of the things that I really appreciate about what you're saying is, and how you are and how your senior pastor is, resonates with me, how I am, is you're talking about relational living,
Yeah.
because
Hmm.
you can meet with people and help them. But what I love too, what you say, because a lot of times when we're program oriented, I don't want to totally discount programs because there's great
No.
programs oriented. But if you're
Hmm.
programming event driven, you miss out on the individuality of how the Holy Spirit is discipling that person. We get to be part of
Right.
the process of the Holy Spirit growing people in their faith, and sometimes the programs and events and stuff can get in the way of that because they're trying to fit into that. And so I really that resonates with me. So I really appreciate that. It's a little more work and not as easily defined, and maybe your
Right.
benchmarks don't look exactly what we want, but I think in the long game it sounds beautiful,
Yeah.
so I appreciate that.
And I want to make note of that, the relational discipleship part of that you were mentioning. I am the only extrovert on our staff. We have 13 people. Everybody else is an introvert,
Yeah,
and they've all bought into relational ministry.
yeah.
So it's not about the personality you are. It's about just the focus that you want to be. I mean, I go home and play and hang out with people after Easter. Everybody else on our staff goes home and takes a nap. But
Mhm.
I mean, that's the
Yeah,
difference.
yeah.
So it's for everybody.
No, it's interesting. We always thought I was an extrovert till my wife went back to school and she was studying it for her teaching degree. And she goes, "Oh, you're actually an introvert. I love people. I love hanging out with people, but I'm
Mhm.
so tired. It just drains me. I don't get
Oh
energy
yeah.
from it. And so,
Hmm.
and I'm like, oh,
Hmm.
that's good for me to know why I just want to go home and take a nap after church. It's not because,
Exactly.
yeah, but I love people. I love hanging around
Right.
it, and
Right. Right.
it's a tough thing.
It's a
Anyway,
tough thing.
so we're going to shift a little bit and get down into. I mean,
Yeah.
this is great stuff, but your story is something that I think it will bless a lot of people, and the way you come across. So before we get kind of into it, we'll start getting into it. But tell me kind of how you
Yeah.
rely on church members.
Well, so we view church members as I, I've been in a lot of churches that view church members as the cattle, and we have to take them from the field into the
Mm,
barn,
mm,
basically.
yeah.
And we don't view them that way, or at least I don't. I don't think anybody else does. We view our church members as, how do I want to say it? They are the church.
Hmm.
It's not it the building is not the church. They're the church. We've had a lot of people come and tell us, oh, you got to get rid of live stream because that's just ruining your church. No, 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 no. We have people worshiping in Denver, in foreign countries. We have people in Southern Illinois. I mean, they're all over the place, and they're hearing the good news of Jesus.
Hmm.
In Germany, in Portugal, we've seen them all. And so we view our members in that way, as you are the body of Christ, and they embrace that as the body of Christ. So when we do something, when we're doing a event, or when we're doing, encouraging people, we not only say our members are this, we sit down as a staff and do something called a people party, where I need a couple people for X ministry. Oh, these five people would be great. Oh, why don't you call them? Why don't you call them? Why don't you call them? So maybe that's more on the team side, but we're viewing the people as the doers of the ministry.
Hmm.
They are the hands and feet of Jesus in our community. They know way more than we do.
Hmm.
We've been ingrained with this for years, so now we need to rely on them to be our hands, our feet, our eyes, our ears, and tell us what is needed both in the community of the church and the community of Palatine. So they are, I mean, when you talk about the priesthood of all believers, we see them as the priesthood of all believers.
Hmm.
They are the people. They may not wear collars, but doggone it, they're better priests than Pastor Carl or I or anybody else on staff is,
Hmm.
because they have different connections than we will ever have.
Yeah, that's good. You know, part of our job in Ephesians 4 is to equip
Hmm.
the church, the people for the work of the ministry. And
Yep.
kind of when you look at that and you study that a little bit, it's actually equipping them to proclaim the gospel. And
Right.
so, you know, and so we rely on the church to do the work that we can't do, just like you said, to go out,
Right.
to make things happen. I mean, you know, we want people there to come to church. You talk about 25 visitors a week. I would venture to say most of those visitors are because someone has asked them to come or told them about your church.
Oh, yeah.
You're not you going out there and doing it. And so
No,
in ministry, you know, we can talk about the negative. I don't want to because this is positive, Pastor. But we know it's there. So can you tell
it's
me about
there.
a time when you have been built up in the ministry?
So built up in a good way is what I'm assuming, not torn down, right?
Right, correct.
Okay.
You've been
Okay.
built up. Hmm.
So I mean, I saw your list of questions beforehand. I'm just gonna say, and I read through it, and I actually was typing out some different ideas. And after a page and a half, I had to quit because
Good.
there's just so much
Hmm.
that I see as far as being built up by our members.
Hmm.
You know, they I've been okay. So I've served in, my wife and I just did the math, nine different churches in my 32 years of
Wow.
ministry. So you can do the math. That's a lot.
Hmm.
And there is nothing like the church that I'm at now. Now I've been built up in churches for a long time. Uh, but there's nothing like this. I can tell you, when I walk into church on a Sunday or a Saturday night, um, I will have at least 12 people give me a hug
Hmm.
and tell me they love me.
Hmm.
There is nothing more powerful than somebody looking at you saying, I love you.
Hmm.
That to me is the sign of a congregation that wants to be here. I think looking at it in the opposite way, and we all know, and you said it, when you're in church ministry, there can be people who are EGRs, a little extra grace required people. Um, but those are also the people that I'm finding that are so passionate about the ministry. They just want to be empowered to do it. And so when you send them and let them do their thing, they are just rejoicing at it. So, I mean, one specific one in particular that uh, happened is one that happened at BPM this year, actually. Um, and it wasn't from a member of this church, it was actually a past church.
Hmm.
And this is maybe sound really odd and goofy, but to me, it was extremely powerful. So I served in a church many, many years ago, and I left that call as a DCE and went to another congregation. And you always kind of leave a church sometimes just feeling like, did I make a difference? Did I do anything? I haven't succeeded here. I don't have 45 kids going into ministry, and I don't have, your numbers are, and all of that stuff. And you just kind of struggle through it. Um, One of the people at BPM, she was actually in my presentation, ran across the big grassy knoll, or the big grassy area. I call it the grassy knoll, the big
Yeah.
grassy area at Christ, and just shouted my name, Matt, 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 as loud as she could. I finally turned around and she ran up to me and just gave me the biggest hug. And she goes, I haven't seen you in so long. And not only was she there, but her parents were there too. Now
Hmm.
she's married and lives in Maryland now, but her parents traveled in to see her, and they couldn't help but see me. And their comment of, and her comment, so the young lady said, I said, when I left their home, they threw me a going away party when I left that ministry. Uh, she goes, when I left that home, she said she bawled for days. And she came back and gave me a hug. And she was crying when she said that to me. And her mother and father, her father is a very strong man. Her mother broke down in tears and says, "You have no idea what you meant to our family and our children." I had no idea.
Mm,
And I think for me, that building up was an experience of, okay, I'm not near as bad as I thought I was. That's part of it. But I think the other building up is reminding myself that you don't always see all that you're doing,
right.
but it's happening. And it's happening on a regular basis. And whether you're a director of Christian education, whether you're a youth pastor or a senior pastor, a teacher, a principal, a DCE, a deaconess, whatever it may be, you are making a difference in somebody's life. And whether they vocally say it or they just kind of hem and haw at you, you are making a difference. And I think going along with that, if you don't mind, Kirk, I'd like to challenge people actually in this too. Is that if you want people to build you up, build your people up.
Hmm.
You can reform people. I am very much so a hugger, and when we do communion, it's not uncommon for me to fist bump people, to walk out and give them a hug after they take communion, to say hi to them. When I walk out of the sanctuary and see people, can I give you a hug? And we're doing that. I love yous. I say that on a regular basis. And what it does is it changes their mindset towards you. And again, I'm the extrovert on staff, but what I found is that congregational people are now going up to other staff members, giving them hugs, saying, "You know what? I love you too, and it's great to see you, and you are so loved, and you are cared for, and we want you to know that." And
Hmm.
and I think those may be little things, but I think, you can say death by 1,000 needles, but you can also say love and build up by 100,000 balloons.
Mm.
And I think that's the same thing to me. And I think for me, it's not one event in particular, but it's thousands of little events that you get to grab a hold of, little moments in time that just hit you in a way that you just gather them up. I actually have a little box here in my office of all the notes that I get sent, all the emails that I get sent that I print off and I put in there. And when I'm feeling down, I can pull them out and just read them.
Mhm.
In fact, Sunday I got a note from one of our members, and he just said, "I just want you and Pastor Carl to know you guys are awesome. It's so great to see the joy that you express in worship."
Mm.
That was unsolicited. He just felt like he needed to do it. And this is not a talkative dude. So I mean, it's just those little things I think really build, at least for me, build me up.
Mhm.
And when somebody says I love you, that man, that's just amazing. And it builds you up in a way that you just can't
Yeah.
you can't describe.
No, that's really good. And a lot of pastors, and I encourage pastors to do this, is to hold on to those notes.
Oh yeah.
But I would also encourage you, have one or two in view all the time.
Yep.
Stick them in front of you so that you're reminded, hey, someone encouraged me. And then you might want to rotate them. I always put the most recent ones. It makes it
Hmm.
sound like I'm getting them all the time, but but the most recent ones, you just put them up there and go, man, and I think it's the we're just in such a world of of instant gratification and return on
Oh yeah.
investment. How quickly can I get that? Ministry is the long game. And
Yeah.
and so we do our job, and I encourage all pastors or anyone leading this, listening to this, who's in ministry. We do our job. We try to be faithful to the Lord, and we have to trust God with the results.
Yep.
Because a lot of times it doesn't. I mean, you've been a teacher, man. A lot of times you're presenting material and you think that the kids need to get it this way, and they don't, right? Or some do,
Hmm.
and yet later on, some, because of how you taught it, it finally clicked and it got there.
Right.
So we just trust the Lord. and the Holy Spirit's doing that work. And so I appreciate that word. And as we go and talk about the ministry, I know the question that I'm going to ask is, what have you found to be the most challenging aspect of ministry? And I would like you to answer that, but I wonder if you'd
Mhm.
be willing just to share a little bit of some of the mental health challenges that you have faced, and how God has worked through those things, and actually now uses you to benefit
Yeah.
others.
Yeah, I would do that in a heartbeat. I think, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity and the platform, to be quite honest with you, Kirk. Um, uh, so, um, my ministry, again, 32 years, but this all goes all the way back to when I was in second grade, and I'm not going to use any names to protect the innocent. But I had a second grade teacher one time. I'm not dyslexic, but as every second grader, I struggle with my D's and B's,
Mhm.
and lowercase, not capital. And so I remember I was in the classroom getting my backpack put together, and my mother came in and asked if she would help me. And she said out loud, to which I heard that I was stupid. And that was, and I hate to say it, that was at one of our blessed Lutheran schools. And unfortunately, that stayed with me for years, years and years. I've never felt myself to be strong enough or smart enough. And so that's kind of where it started. Uh, and I'm setting you the foundation so you know where I'm going from here. Um, my name's Matt. When I was in fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth grade, I was a little overweight. So, the nicknames come rolling in of Fat Matt, and that's what I was known for forever. Even when I got my body weight down to about 135 pounds in high school, I was still known as Fat Matt.
Mhm.
I've always been short, so 135 pounds is not a big deal. My dad was 122 when he graduated, and he reminds me of that daily. So he and so all of that kept going, and went into college. I found myself in college. I was so excited. It was great. But then came ministry. And and I want to start that by saying I love doing ministry. I love serving Jesus. I love all the people that I have served with, whether you're in my top 10 or in my bottom three, it doesn't matter. I still love you. Um, but my first day in my first call, I walked into the office. I was a young single guy in this church, in this school. I was one of two men on staff. And at 22 years old, you're on top of the world. Both secretaries gave me hugs, said they were excited to see me. I walked into the principal's office and I said, I hear you need to talk to me. And he hands me a stack of books about, I don't know, 8 to 10 inches high. And he says, we need two more soccer games and two more volleyball games. You're the AD, figure it out. And then he paused and he looked at me and he goes, and I don't want you here, and I'm going to make it my job to get rid of you. Have a
Mhm.
nice day. And that was my very first day in ministry.
Wow.
And from
Mm.
that point on, I went downhill quite rapidly. I'm a diabetic, and my diabetes went way out of control. I was having all kinds of issues there. I was at one point, thank God for my at the time girlfriend, now wife. Uh, I I was contemplating suicide at one point. I was calling my parents, sitting in a closet, crying. I just couldn't handle it, and that stayed with me for years. Um, it took that call, and I moved on from there. I left that call in 2 years. Actually, I was told they were not going to renew my call. Uh, to which, and I found this is actually a feather in my cap, and I didn't say this at BPM, so you're getting a little more of the
Yay.
the story. They had a voters meeting because they had to vote to not issue me back my call. They did a 1 year call for your first 5 years. I found out later that was to get rid of the people that this individual didn't want on staff. So that's how they did that. Uh, when they had to vote on me resigning my call, uh, 95% of the church didn't vote.
Mm.
You heard three yeses, and nobody else said a word. And that to me was the founding statement of I was loved here.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, I can't stay here. Um, Left there, got married, had several other different places that I went, started doing youth ministry, stepped into the DCE role, which was a wonderful position. I went to a large church in our synod and basically was told that was basically fired. I mean, for lack of a better term, I was fired from my position for not doing my job. That's what I was told. Um, and and now let's be clear, I had 50 some odd people in youth group. I had 145 people in our junior high ministry. Um, it was a flourishing youth ministry. It was a flourishing system. It was wonderful, but I wasn't doing my job. And so I left. And that was really the kicker that started me down a downward cycle. About 6 years ago, um, I was driving to the gym. I'm an exercise enthusiast, and I remember it distinctly. It was a cold November day. I'm in Chicago, so every day after October 1st is cold. But it was a cold November day, and I was driving down the road, and I remember seeing I think it was an Arby's, and I said to myself, if I jerk the wheel real hard, I think I'm going fast enough that I could kill myself if I ran into that wall. And that was the moment when I was like, oh, that's not good.
Mm.
And immediately set an appointment with a doctor, got back into counseling, which I desperately needed. And it started a lot of just rapid healing and rapid movement. I'm a big proponent of pharmaceutical healing in prescribed pharmaceuticals. Please understand that. But I'm on a lot of mental health medications. I'm on things that'll even me out. My big problems are, and in the past, and I've had to overcome them because of the negativity that I've gotten from so many different other positions and so on and so forth. I've been addicted to pornography, no longer am, but was. I struggled in college. I think I said this in college. I wanted to make sure I lost weight. I lost 60 pounds my freshman year of college. I was anorexic. They checked me into the hospital because my systems were shutting down. I was so thin, 128 pounds, I think is what I was, skin and bones. Um, so I've suffered from an eating disorder. Anorexia is something you don't heal from. It's something you always have and you fight against.
Mm.
Um, on top of that, I suffer from um, clinical depression, clinical anxiety, suicidal thoughts, and PTSD, along with self worth issues and body image issues. I don't think they make any more struggles, or else I'd probably be adapted in on those as well. And I say that jokingly because there's just a lot that I've had to go through to get to where I am. And I'm just sharing with you the 20,000 foot view. I'm not going all deep into everything because there's a lot more there, from parents in school yelling at you saying, why aren't you teaching my kid correctly? I had a parent come in and yell at me one time. I gave their child an A, and they asked why didn't they get an A+ on a report card, and I said, well, their grade was a 98. Well, what do they need to do to get 100, and why aren't you teaching them well enough?
Mm.
Parents yelling at you because their kid didn't start, even though they can't dribble a basketball and run down the court. I mean, it's all of these different things that you're like, okay, I get it, but it's all coming at you 100,000 miles an hour, and you have no time to process it. Especially my generation, us Gen Xers, because mental health is something that we didn't care about. The comment was, rub some dirt on it, you'll be fine, or grow some thicker skin, or suck it up, buttercup, or whatever the case might be. And so I got into some very serious counseling. In fact, I just saw my counselor this morning. We meet every 4 weeks. I see a doctor on a regular basis for my mental health medications. I see my endocrinologist on a regular basis for all my diabetes stuff. I stay in good health. I'm at the gym every day, and I really try to put in the work in the four areas that I believe are needed in order to really be positive and find find not only good mental health, but find good just positive. And I use the word juju a lot, but positive juju so that your body, your mind, your spirit, your emotions, everything feels right. And
Mhm.
that's the toughest part.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of work. It's not something Jenny, or who was it? Arnold Schwarzenegger one time said, he said, nobody gains muscle by watching me lift weights. And I think that's such a profound statement because you can watch somebody else do the stuff, but if you don't do it yourself, you ain't going to get nothing out of it. I can go to the counselor all I want, but if I don't actually listen and put it into effect, it's going to suck, man. Your life's just going to go down in a spiral.
Yeah.
So,
It's a good word for parishioners if you had just come to listen. Anyway.
yeah, that's
But
another story.
by the way, thank you for the soreness that I've experienced the last 2 weeks because after going to your session, I got back into the gym. So
All right.
it's your fault.
Good for you.
I'm a fellow diabetic as well. Fortunately,
Okay.
it's fairly controlled through
Good.
one Ozempic a week and
Oh, okay. All right.
a very strict diet. So.
Well,
Uh,
good for you.
yeah, well, 3 years ago, my wife got diagnosed with a chronic disease, a cancer type thing, and so
Mm.
I said
Oh my.
I better take care of myself
Yeah.
so that I could take care of her. But God's good;
Hmm.
she's doing great.
Good
So
deal. Good deal.
and again, I want to encourage you and anyone else who's listening. Your struggle that is real is God uses those things to help others. And I think
Hmm.
sometimes that helps you get out of how you're
Oh
feeling
yeah.
about yourself is wait a second. First of all, the world is not about me.
Right.
But second of all, man, God, thank you that I've had this struggle and I continue to struggle with it because I know I can relate to people now because people are
Yeah.
seriously dealing with mental health issues that, like you said, we ignored.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I was told, if unless I was dying, I couldn't cry. Basically, I mean, it wasn't quite
Yeah.
that extreme, but that's how it came across to me.
Pretty close. Yeah.
And so you've had a lot of different ministry experiences. All have, and praise the Lord that you're positive still, because you're giving us, like you said, that 20,000 foot view. But there's some deep hurts that you've had to deal
Oh yeah.
with. There's some deep image issues that you've had that you continue to deal
Oh yeah.
with. And so I also encourage pastors too, and those, don't be afraid of going to counseling.
Oh.
Even if you are my generation, and even if you were like I was part of a different denomination that said counseling was all evil. So,
Oh.
and
Mm.
then what do? I go into a doctorate of positive mental health. So, there you go. Anyway, so,
Good for you.
but the
And
whole thing is, go ahead.
I was going to say, and just to say that we have 13 people on staff, two administrative assistants. Other than that, 10 people on our staff all see counselors on a regular basis and are very open about it,
It's good.
which again empowers our congregation to say maybe I need that, and
Yeah.
they don't mind sharing it at all.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I
Sorry, I
always
didn't mean to cut you
no,
off.
no. I interviewed Dr. Chris Adams from he's the head of Rosemead. I think it's Rosemead or Rosewood College at Biola, and he's like the second
Mm,
leading expert on pastor mental health,
mm,
and so I asked him, what do you say to people who say, well, psychology is bad, you shouldn't go to it? He goes, well, there is some bad psychology out there. He
hmm.
says, so find the good ones. And I always liken it to if my kid breaks their leg, well, they're adults and out of the house, they can deal with it now. But if my kid was younger and he broke his leg and he needed an orthopedic surgeon, I would want the best. I'd want to find the good one. I'm not going to go to the guy that has, like a 20% success rate.
Right.
And so I think the same when it comes to psychology and psychiatrists and whatnot. Find the ones that there are good ones out there. God has
Hmm.
gifted us the ability to study these things, and all knowledge comes from Him. And so we need
Yep.
to recognize that it's not a lack of faith. It's not a weakness as a Christian. It's actually saying, God, you've given these things for as gifts to us, and help us to
Hmm.
use them wisely. So I just
Yeah.
want to encourage anyone out there who struggles with that. And so you've been in different ministry contexts,
Hmm.
and like you said, you're the unicorn. I'd say there's other reasons why you're a unicorn, but that's a. But I appreciate that. You were able to engage a room full of people in very great ways, and so and you didn't hold
Appreciate
still.
that.
And
No,
so
no.
So
I got
one of the things,
19,000 steps that day. It was great.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So over all this, what have you found to be, if there's one thing, and maybe you can't narrow it down to one, has been the most challenging aspect of ministry?
Well, and I think I was pondering this a lot, and there's a lot to that question. You know, you can say finding volunteers for ministry, which everybody says that's a challenge. You can say finding the right person to be on the bus. You can say, finding the right members and growing your church and all of this. I think quite personally, I think the biggest challenge is to find your peace, find your um how do I want to say it, find your place where you can find rest and comfort and peace. I think that's the way to say it. And what I mean by that is I know a lot of church workers who are 24/7, 365, and they are not allowed to take a break. I give you a story. I was serving at a church and I was on vacation. I was literally on vacation. I was at my in-laws house, so it was kind of vacation, but I was at my in-laws house, and I got a phone call from a member who said, "Hey, can you come down to the church right now? I want to size up this booth that I'm making so that you can use it on Sundays." I said, "Well, I can't. This was in another state. I was in Iowa. I, it's 9 hours to get to the church." And he was like, "What? You're not in town?" I said, "No, I'm on vacation. I'm off." He goes, "Well, you need to be here.
Mhm.
I can't believe you're not here," and slammed the phone down. And I was like, "Dude, there's no way I can be in two
Mhm.
places at once, and I'm deserved rest." And I think that's where church both members need to realize that church workers are carrying a lot, and church workers need to realize they're carrying a lot. And not to say that people in general aren't carrying a lot, but I know from my point of view, you're carrying the emotions of everybody who comes in and who you talk to on the phone. You're carrying the weight of the ministry on your shoulders. I mean, someone asked me what I do for a living, and I say I try to get people into heaven. I mean, that's a pretty heavy burden right
Wow.
there.
Yeah, yeah.
And if you think about it in that way, you're carrying all that stuff. And so I want the members to realize what the people are carrying and be willing to share that, not in a woe is me way, but in a I gotta do this. These are things I need to do. But then as a church worker, find your place of peace, find your place of rest. Get a hobby
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
is not just reading the Bible and sitting down and studying. Uh, find a way to take care of your health, uh, your physical health. Find a way to get your emotions into check. Find a way to find the positive. I know so many negative, hateful church workers.
Yeah.
It saddens me. I,
Mhm.
I I heard one church worker one time, this is years and years and years ago, referred to his congregation as a brood of vipers.
Mhm.
I'm like, these are the people you're trying to help get into heaven. What? What? I
Mhm.
mean, it's those kinds of things where it's like, I think that's the biggest challenge is we are both our biggest supporters and our biggest detriment at the same time in church ministry.
Yeah.
We so badly want to do what God has called us to do, which is totally good, but we do it at the detriment of our own selves.
Mhm.
And we fail physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally. It all falls apart. I know a lot of church workers, and I know a lot, especially pastors, and this one I'll speak just to pastors. I know a lot of pastors who retire and then come out of retirement to help a congregation because either A, they don't know how to retire, or B, they know if they retired, they're going to die because they have nothing else to do. Their whole identity is wrapped up in the church. Um, my identity is I'm a Christian. My identity is I'm a pastor. I'm a husband. I'm a father. I'm a carpenter. I'm an exercise enthusiast. I'm a St. Louis Cardinal baseball fan. I say that kind of quietly now. I'm a football fan. I that's who I am. I can do those things, and I love doing it. And so when I retire, I'm not going to be at a loss for things to do, and I'm not going to be a loss for doing ministry. My ministry is different then, but find a way to find your peace. Take some rest, find a break, take a nap for crying out loud sometimes. If you're able, if you're not able to take a nap, go to bed early. Don't don't just go because you think that's what you have to do. Be willing to step back and let people take care of themselves as well. And it may sound mean, that may sound terrible, that may go against everything we're taught. And it truly is against everything that I was taught in all of my education. But in the same respect, I know that if I went like they wanted me to, I'm 50, I'll be 54 this year. I'd have been dead 6 years ago, just because there's no way. And the burnout rate in ministry people is through the roof. We are losing more pastors to burnout, and that's just not our denomination. That's
Right.
across the board.
Right.
We are losing more pastors to burnout every year. Church workers, I'm just going to go church workers every year than we are putting into it. And it's at an alarming rate. And that's because we don't know how to take care of ourselves.
Yeah.
If you're not, I use this in the thing. What do they tell you on the plane? When the masks come down, who do you put on first? You got to put on your own, because you can't help anybody else if you ain't okay. And so for me, when I talk about that, put your mask on, because if you're shepherding a flock of 5 or 50 or 1,500 or whatever it is, if you ain't okay, there is no way in the world you're going to help those people be okay.
No, that's a good word, and I feel like we've hung out a lot because that's a lot of what I do, and
Mm-hmm.
in my work is and the other thing is, so when I interviewed Dr. Greg Walton from Grace Place Wellness,
Mm-hmm.
I encourage anybody to go back and look at that. But
Yep.
one of the things that I talk about, because in the church we're weird, and so when we hear self-care, we get kind of wonky about it. So I
Mm-hmm.
always talk to pastors about steward care. It's like God has
Oh.
given you your body to steward. He's given you this congregation. You're to steward them well. He's given you a family to steward them well. He's also given you to steward
Mm-hmm.
well. And if we can look at it that way, I want to be a good steward of what God has given me to steward. And then the challenge is, don't feel guilty for having those hobbies. Don't feel guilty for taking time to invest in what God has given you in your body. Because what makes you a better pastor makes your congregation a better church. And so
Oh yeah.
the challenge too is that, you mentioned it, people. So again, just coming from my research and what I know, we are part of the helping profession, and
Mm-hmm.
our mental health is only one person group in the helping profession has worse mental health than us, and that's counselors.
Wow.
Pastors have the
Mm.
second worst mental health. And I think that's because we get also spiritual care from the Lord, but also the joys that we sometimes find in ministry. But what happens all the time, and you mentioned, is people call you or they come to your office and they spiritually vomit all over you. They
Mm-hmm.
don't really listen to what you have to say, but they feel better, and you're left with it, right?
Right.
And you want for them to have success, to grow. And then, as church members, I encourage you all to make sure your pastor is taking care of themselves. Be kind to
Yeah.
them. Make sure they have at least a day off. I would recommend more than that,
Oh yeah.
but at the same time, make sure that they're, if not pastors don't get paid well, make sure that their hobbies can be fulfilled. Man, you're speaking my language. I know so many pastors that come out of retirement because they don't know what to do if they're not preaching or teaching on Sunday mornings or throughout the week,
Right.
and they're
Mm-hmm.
lost. And
Yep.
so again, find a hobby. Find the hobby now, and don't feel guilty for taking it. And it's okay sometimes. I know this is unpopular. It's okay sometimes not to answer the phone.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, And they can leave a message and you can check it at a more convenient time. And again, I'm guilty of answering those phones when I'm on vacation or on my day off. And, we have to wrestle with that. And so, anyway, I think that you've shared a lot that I don't need to really ask the next question because I really want to hear your answer to how someone has made you smile from your church within the last 2 weeks.
I was going to say you just made me smile, so there you go. That was easy. So I'm going to go case in point. I'm a smiler. Zig Ziglar once said, "If you have a smile, don't forget to share it with somebody else. You got plenty."
Yeah.
And so I think that's one way to do it. So, but ways that people have made me smile in the last 2 weeks. I mean, quite frankly, getting the emails from you to come on here and do this, I smiled. My wife makes me smile on a regular basis. She's not a member of our church because she's a principal at another Lutheran school, so therefore she goes membership there. And we have this, which is actually perfect because then we don't dislike the same people. It's great. Joke, joke, joke. But I would say the best way that I can describe it. I talked about the email I got from a parishioner. Um, I was walking into church last weekend. So what would that have been? Yesterday. I don't even know what day of the week it is. Yesterday, and we had Pastor Carl and I had done a funeral for this family's mother. We know the couple, but we didn't know the parent at all. So Pastor Carl did the funeral. I did the gravesite because they were on separate days. So we had to work out a schedule. Anyway, uh, she walked up to me and she grabbed my arm as I was walking into church. Thank God I wasn't preaching. She grabbed my arm and she looks at me and she goes, "You and Pastor Carl are amazing." And I go, "Thank you."
Mm.
She goes, "No, no, no. The fact that you took out of your time to do a funeral for somebody that you didn't know," she goes, "and it was beautiful. And you came outside when it was -4 degrees and did the gravesite portion." I said, "Well, I had a stocking cap, so it was okay." And she giggled and she goes, "You two are just amazing." And she just continued to dote all over Carl and I. And that may sound conceited, it may sound bad, it may sound awful, but what it sounds to me is it's the appreciation shared uh, that gives you the joy. Carl and I have a very unique relationship. Uh, Carl's my senior pastor. We make jokes. He's 6'3". I'm 5'8". He's tall and skinny, and I mean he's as thin as a rail. I'm much more wider build. I will not say that I'm overweight. Um, and on a regular basis, when we do church together, we walk out of the sanctuary arm in arm, and it makes me smile because when we do that, everybody else sees that and they smile and they rejoice and they are glad. And again, I go back to I get, 12 hugs a weekend and I get, 15 or 16 fist bumps, or the little kids that come up and show me their Batman t-shirt because I'm a Batman fan, and are like, "Look, look, look." And I'm like, "Oh, that's awesome." It's those little things that just make you smile. And it doesn't even mean anything. We had a couple that came and visited this weekend and they brought their little child who was hiding under our connection booth so nobody could see him. And I looked at him and I said, "Hi, buddy." And he goes, he just kind of waved his hand a little bit and snuck back in. His father put his arm on my shoulder and goes, "Thank you for saying hi to him." I'm like, "Absolutely. It was great." He goes, "No, it was awesome." And, it's just those little things that really get you excited about ministry and doing those things. And I just, it, if you look for the big gestures to smile at, you're never going to find them. You just aren't, because people other than Christmas and maybe Pastor Appreciation Month
If they remember.
aren't going exactly aren't going to do anything big for you. But those little things, when you take solace in those little things and you see them for what they are, Man, that's just amazing. And when you see a congregation that smiles at you, that high fives you on the way out of church because you and the pastor are walking out arm in arm, because you hug each other after you commune one another, telling each other, love you, can't wait to see you on the other side. That's us pastors. When when you do those things, when you love what you do and you show that joy, everybody else feeds off of it
Yeah.
and they can't help but be joyful for you.
Hmm.
Um, and I know that's how do you be positive for your pastor? Well, your pastor needs to be positive for you and vice versa. And
Yeah.
it's contagious. It's
Yeah.
contagious.
Yeah, you can build a sense of reciprocity if you practice some things, and you really, Matt, you really hit onto a lot of the work that I do when I do present to pastors. I have a worksheet for them after we go through all the six components of positive mental health, and really
Mhm.
looking at it and diving into to how someone has made you feel optimistic about the future, or how they have encouraged you in the midst of conflict, and really drilling this down. And at the end they kind of have this tool that I present, and I have it for teachers and for lay people too, to really
Oh, cool.
to really reflect and go, okay, how did someone do this week? Because I
Mhm.
think we need to pause and look at those,
Oh,
and
yeah.
there are those little things. And I always say pastors aren't too complicated. It doesn't take a whole lot.
Nope.
And then I have pastors, especially the older generation. When I presented at the Southern District for their all workers, you could see this resistance because they've been put through the ringer. They've been fighting hard
Yeah.
for years in ministry, and no one told them to pause and to see how God is using people to encourage
Mhm.
them and build them up. And you can see them go, it's just supposed to be Jesus and us. I said, then why did Paul say, I thank the Lord for Achaicus and Stephanas, for they refreshed my spirit? Or I thank the Lord for you did this thing for me. And in Ephesians chapter 4, he says, we're the body of Christ and we're building one another up in love. And so we don't sit there and go, okay, how are people feeding my ego or making me feel better? We go, how is God using these people to encourage me so that I can keep doing what God has called me to do?
Right.
In a
Right.
positive way. And so,
Hmm.
so thank you. You realize all you did was support everything that I've been working on the last 4 years. So anyway,
Well,
no.
good. I'm glad. Can
But
I give one other
please,
hint to
please,
pastors?
yeah.
So one of the things that we do as a staff that I think is huge, and this goes into building up a culture of positivity and joy, is every staff meeting. And again, meeting is a dirty word in my mind. Okay, it
Yeah.
is. But every staff meeting, we start out with the word. We start out in scripture, love Jesus. Then we move to love others, which is what are the celebrations you saw this weekend?
Hmm.
What are you celebrating? Who did you see? Who new did you see in church so that we can rejoice in that? What did they say? How can we help them? It's stepping into and actually making, I mean, it's amazing when you can sit there and you can say, you know what, I'm celebrating that we had X, Y, and Z in church today. I'm I'm celebrating that we had a double dunker in church this weekend. That's two baptisms in one service. We call them double dunkers. uh it's when you start pointing those things out, they become more noticeable.
Yeah.
And I know there are pastors that go up that look like they've been baptized in vinegar and their cat just died
Mm.
when they do church. And quite frankly, we get to preach the gospel every Sunday.
Yeah.
We get to rejoice in Jesus and lead others to see Jesus.
Mhm.
We get to celebrate the wins and we get to walk through the losses. And quite frankly, if you don't like what you're doing and you can't be joyous in what you're doing, either you need to check yourself before you wreck yourself, or you need to find a new job,
Yeah.
because we have the best job in the world
Hmm.
and we get to tell people who Jesus is,
Hmm.
who's, as far as I'm concerned, the best dude ever in the world.
Yeah.
So I don't know why. And again, I'm a very hyper, outside, energetic kind of guy. I know that. I talked with my counselor today. We both believe I may have a little ADHD, but we're not sure. But but what I do know is that if you focus on all the problems, you will be one of the problems. If you start looking for the positive, the positive will just roll in on you.
Mhm.
So change your mindset.
Yeah.
It's as easy as that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like so years ago when our kids were young, and I think our oldest was 15 at the time, and he said something profound. I mean, godly and profound. And I looked at my wife and said, "Hold on to that. I don't know when we're going to see it again." You know, but taking the time to recognize some things, right?
Yeah.
And go,
Yeah.
okay, because the it, people are always going to tell you good job, typically, but
Yeah.
it's the ones that haven't or that actually look. I have this guy that just started coming about 8 weeks ago or so, I want to say, came to Bible study and has been coming to church, sits alone, very reserved, really good theologian, but very critical in how he approaches
Hmm.
things. And I've just watched this countenance of his just kind of relax. And
Yep.
he talked to me before service this last week, and I don't want to get in trouble with the LCMS, but that's okay. I'll say it anyway. And he said,
I'm already
hey,
in trouble.
he said, hey, he goes, I want to take communion. He goes, but I don't know. I haven't been baptized as a Lutheran. I said, well, were you baptized as a Mormon? And he goes, no, it was a non-denomination church. I said, did they believe that in the Trinity, and did they baptize you as such? He goes, oh yeah, oh yeah. I said, okay. And I know in talking to you, you believe what we believe about that God, Jesus is present and he's delivering his gifts and it's his body and his blood. And I know you believe that. I said, so please come forward. And he goes, oh, I've been wanting to ask you for a couple of weeks. And for me, that was just like, man, I wouldn't have imagined that. In fact, this first week that he came, I'm like, he's not coming back.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then yeah,
Hmm.
and he came again, and you've just seen this joy grow in him and this comfortability, and so you have to look at those things because you'll miss them. You
Hmm.
won't pause to go, that was a huge, that was, I mean, and I was rejoicing in his countenance at Bible study that morning, just how
Yeah.
he seemed lighter and more engaged, and I'm like, man, something's going on here. And so I just want to encourage pastors to look at that. If you could sum up, and this is a hard thing for us to do, but I think you probably have an idea what your
All right.
desire for the people at your church would be, what would it be?
Well, I mean, the easy answer is I want everybody to be in heaven. That's the easy answer. Okay. So we got that out of the way.
Yeah.
I think my desire for my people at my church, here at Prince of Peace Lutheran Church in Palatine, Illinois, is to live a life where they love joy, where they love Jesus, they love others, and they love themselves. Love yourself. I think, we talked about that. That's our discipleship path. And I think if they can follow, and that's really what Jesus command. A new command I give you: love one another. What is the greatest commandment? Well, first is love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And what's the second? Love your neighbor as yourself. Jesus, others, self,
Hmm.
joy. And so I think if I can help our people live a life where they love Jesus through worship in the word, where they love others by sharing food, giving them what they need, by sharing friendship, by just making connections, by sharing faith, just being Jesus' hands and feet, and where they can love themselves by being still with God, by caring for themselves physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, and by taking Sabbath rest from all things. If we can get them to do even half of that, that's a win to me.
Yeah.
And that's the discipleship path. That's what I want for. Quite frankly, I want for all people,
Yeah.
and that's what we try to model in everything that we do is that. So that's what I would really love for our people to know and do and walk with each day.
Mm. That's great. So Matt, thanks so much for your time. I'm just going to wrap up a couple
Absolutely.
things here, but I got this at Best
Yes.
Practices, and people can't read it, but on here, there's a way. He's got so much to offer to people, and I know he willingly wants to help. I know he's working on writing a book and all this good stuff with some great
Yep.
tools in it. I'm excited for that. But if people wanted to get a hold of you and just kind of, seek out, some help with certain things and you could help them out, what would be the best way to do that?
So I'm on all socials, Facebook. You can always Facebook message me. You can DM me on Instagram. Just search Matt Koenig. I think there's only two of them, and there's only one who's a pastor. So,
Yeah.
look for me. The best way is you can email me or go through my website, pastormattkoenig.com. That's the easiest way to do it, or pastormattkoenig@gmail.com.
Yeah.
Either way, you can do that. So those are the easy ways to get through to me. And it's Koenig.
Yeah. Well, good. You saved me from spelling it, but no.
I better know how to spell it.
Yeah, Matt, this has been such a joy, and I really want to look forward to getting to know you more. I want to
Yeah.
tell you from my heart, just this time, I love you. I appreciate
I
you.
love you too, brother.
And
Yeah.
and so I hope that people who are listening find this to be beneficial. Please like, share, subscribe. Also, if you need to reach out to me, it's just positivepastor.org or kirk@positivepastor.org or Facebook. Yeah, I have Pastor's Positive Mental Health is on there. Plus, I'm on there. And so now I'm going to stalk Matt because now I know he's on there. So anyway,
That's great.
yeah, what we're trying to do is we're trying to help fulfill what God has asked us to do, and as Paul instructs us in Ephesians chapter 4, that we would work together to build the church up in love, and
Amen.
from that we would